Okay, now that we've taken a look at the limitations of a file-based approach, it's time to take a look at the database approach. One of the key components that we need to understand is the Dbms. Okay, so the Dbms is basically a software that controls access to a database. Remember, when we were discussing the file-based approach, we were discussing how there was no mechanism of controlling what kind of data was going to be entered, so there was no mechanism of validation. But in the database approach, we have the Dbms, which is going to provide us with a lot of features that are going to ensure data integrity, data privacy, and all of these things. Let's quickly take a look at the features in a Dbms. Okay, one of the most important things that the Dbms does is that it does not allow the same value of the primary key to be entered twice, right? So this is basically called entity integrity, and this is very important if we want to ensure data integrity, right? So data integrity, you know, as we discussed already, means that data must be accurate and up to date. Data integrity means data must be accurate and up to date. And one of the ways that the Dbms ensures that, you know, that the data integrity is maintained is by ensuring that the same value of primary key is not entered twice, right? So primary key stays unique in the entire database. You can't have two different records with the same primary key. Okay, one of the other features of the Dbms is that it ensures referential integrity. Now let's take a look at what we mean by referential integrity. Okay, let's quickly take a look at these two tables. This table is the members table, right? And this table right here is the band table, right? Okay, quick things. This is the primary key and this is also the primary key, right? So the band name is the primary key for the band table and the member ID is the primary key for the member table. One other quick thing that we can spot is that this primary key of the band table is also a part of the member table, right? So when a primary key of one table is found in another table, then it is called the foreign key. So band name was primary key in the band table and it is now called the foreign key in the members table. Remember, foreign keys are used to establish links between tables. So this is how the members table has been linked to the bands table. So these are used to establish links between tables. In case you're wondering what these two tables are all about, the members table is basically about the members that are part of a band, and the band table is about the different bands and their corresponding agents, you know, who deal with the bands, right? So if you want to hire a band, you know, you need to take a look at their agent ID and find out the agent information, which is obviously going to be stored in some other table, right? But you know, the member table is showing us information about the members in a band, and the band table is providing us information about the different bands and their corresponding agents, right, who deal with these bands. Okay, so we've understood what foreign keys are used for. They are used to establish links between different tables, and in this case band name is used to link the member table to the band table, right? So the field band name, which is the primary key in the band table, is used to link the member table to the band table. Okay, now one important question is that which of these two tables was created first? Which of these two tables was created first in the database? So which table was created first in the database? Okay, and the answer to that is that the band table was created first, because remember, we have given values of band names here, and then this band name has to be used in this table, right? So how can we use band name as a foreign key in this table if band name already does not exist as a primary key in the other table, right? So this had to exist first for us to use this as a foreign key in this table, right? So hopefully that concept is clear. Okay, one final thing. if I try and enter a new record here, for example, if I try and enter a new record in the member table, right, and let's say the new record is 0077, that is the ID, and the person's name is Zoo, family name is Lee, right, and let's say I try and enter a band called Jupiter. I try and enter a band called Jupiter. The DBMS is going to check whether this name Jupiter exists in the band table or not, but because it does not exist in the band table, the DBMS will not allow me to make this entry, right? It is not going to allow me to enter a band name which does not exist in the band table. This is called referential integrity. Okay, some other important features of the DBMS is that it provides facilities to a programmer to develop a user interface. And what do we mean by that? Well, somebody like you, when he wants to use a database and he wants to create a table, he'll find a button to click on so that he can create a table. He'll find a button to click on if he wants to generate a report, right? So all those kind of features that are available to a person who wants to use the database, the program, those features, they've been implemented by a programmer, and the DBMS provides all tools that are required by the programmer so that he's able to develop a good user interface. DBMS also provides a query processor, which means if you want to ask questions to your database, for example, if you want to find out how many students scored less than 50 marks in the last test, right, in the last computer science test, then you can write a query for that. You can ask a question to the database and it will extract the data that is relevant to your question, right? So it can search data from a database based on a certain criteria. Finally, if you want to take a look at if you want to do some kind of reporting, right, for example, you want to see how many televisions were sold in the last 1 month, right, and you want a line graph, something like this, or maybe a bar graph showing comparisons between sales during different months. This kind of reporting can also be done, and obviously this feature is also provided by the DBMS. Okay, let's quickly take a look at the role of the database administrator. Now this is the person who's managing your database, right, and he's doing that with the help of a DBMS, right, the software, right. So all of these things are what the database administrator does, right, and he's able to accomplish all of these things with the help of DBMS. So basically all of these features are also provided by the DBMS. The DBMS software provides all of these features, right, and the database administrator can use these features to basically control access rights of the users. This basically means what kind of information can a person access, right? Can a person access? So this basically means in a hospital environment, somebody working in the accounts department will only be able to see information related to accounts. He'll not be able to see the patient's medical reports or the diagnosis that's taking place, right? He'll only be able to view information that is related to him. So what kind of access rights have been given to a certain user? A user can connect to a database to be able to access data using a username and password, and this is also ensured by the database administrator, right? So every user must have a username and password so that he's able to connect to the database and view data. And what kind of data can he view? Only data that he has been allowed to view, right? So basically based on his access rights he's going to be able to view data, right? And finally, the DBA also, the database administrator also creates backups of data so that in case data is lost somehow, there's some backup to restore data from. He also encrypts data. What if somebody steals this data, for example? right? And if he steals this data and he tries to go through the data, he'll find it in encrypted form, right? And if data is in encrypted form, he'll need an encryption key to be able to make sense of that data, right? So data is in encrypted form. And finally, the DBA also monitors activities of users, so he knows if there's something fishy going on or not, right? So that's the role of the database administrator. Remember, he's able to accomplish all of this because all of these features have been provided in the DBMS. One final point that I forgot to mention earlier on was that in a file-based approach, a programmer needs to be aware of the organization of data within the file. And remember, we're talking about text files here, right? So what do we mean by the organization of data? That means what order was the data saved in. We had the first name, and then we had the last name, right? And then we had the email, and then we had I don't know, something else, right? For example, the phone number, right? So the order in which these appeared, right, the kind of information, how it was organized, needed to be known by the programmer. Only then could he write a program that could process this file, right? And this thing is called data dependency. So you because you need to know the organization of data within the file before you can write a program that can process this data. Secondly, in a file-based approach, if you want to enter a new field, for example, you had these 4 fields already, right? All of this information was stored in a text file, right? So you had data of a lot of people, and all these 4 pieces of information was there in the text file. And suddenly you decided, you know what, I forgot to enter the ID number, right? So I need to add this at the start of the file, which meant what? You'll have to rewrite your text file, right? You'll have to recreate your text file, right? And now the data inside the file has been reorganized. A new field has been added. So now the programmer will need to rewrite the program because the organization within the file has changed. So the programmer will need to rewrite his program. Also, the text file will need to be rewritten once again. Now this is not the case with the database approach. So we don't have these hassles in the database approach, but these are problems that can be faced in the file based approach.